Hi guys, welcome back to my vlog channel. If the lighting isn't the best in this video, it's because I'm actually using what is left of the natural light. It's currently, oh my god, it's what? It is 8:53 in the evening and it's still light outside. But I would imagine that throughout this video it's probably going to get a little bit darker. But I wanted to do I was going to say quick video, it's probably not going to be that quick. A video on my second channel just about the whole house buying process in general, because I had a lot of requests from people saying, I'm looking to buy a house soon, I'm a similar age to you, or just in general, like, I'm looking to buy a house soon, what do you recommend, what do you wish that you'd known? Obviously I'm not an expert and all of the information is out there on the internet, but for me personally, when I was first like looking into buying a house, it was a pretty confusing process, I'm not gonna lie, because yeah, everything you do have to find out from the internet and obviously professionals, but I thought it would be quite nice, just as somebody who's now experienced it, for me to kind of share what I learned along the way and like things that I now know that might be helpful. I've written a couple of notes just because there was a few things that I didn't want to forget to mention, and I also asked you guys for some questions on like a couple vlogs back on this channel, and I've screenshotted some of the questions that I thought might be useful to answer. So there's one question that just says, what was the whole process like in terms of applying for a mortgage, house hunting, etc. So I guess starting from the beginning, once I had a decent amount of savings, I thought, okay, I reckon I'm probably like, you know, nearing the point where I can start looking for houses. The first thing that I did is I went online and did a mortgage calculator. So there's different websites and often on bank websites like your local bank or just, you know, HSBC, Halifax, NatWest. The majority of banks have a mortgage calculator. So you put in your salary and if you're like buying with more than one person, like say you're buying with your partner, you put in both of your salaries and your income and stuff and like a few more other bits of information, and it gives you a rough estimate of how much they can lend you. So most mortgages come from like your classic banks, but not all of them do. Like there are some like specialist lenders and stuff, which I'll get into a bit later on. But so the first thing I guess to do is do a mortgage calculator, so you can figure out roughly how much the bank will lend you, so you can work out how much of a deposit you need depending on what type of property you are wanting to buy, whether you're wanting to buy a house or a flat, and what your budget is. The tricky thing is things might have changed around a bit now because of coronavirus. I know that a lot of banks have like pulled out their mortgage offers, and some of them now require you to have a higher deposit. So the typical deposit that you put down on a property, this is just in the UK by the way, most banks would want between a 5 and 20% deposit. The typical deposit for a property is 10%. So for example, if you've got a property that's £300,000, you would need a deposit of £30,000 to put down on that house, and then the rest you would get loaned by a bank, and that's what the mortgage is. In some special cases they will ask for a 5% deposit. Like I know for example there was a thing in the UK called Help to Buy ISAs, where you could buy a new build property, or like there was different limitations depending on like whereabouts you bought somewhere. I think Help to Buy has now ended, I'm not 100% sure on that, but it was like a scheme where the government would like help you to buy your first house, and it was only for first time buyers. So obviously I am a first time buyer and most of this information is for first time buyers. But I have read recently that some lenders are now requiring a 20% deposit instead of a 10% deposit. So if you were buying a property for 300,000 where you might have just needed 30,000 to put down, you then have to double that and put down £60,000. That's not the case for everything, and I don't want to like scare you guys. I know that there are lots of different mortgage offers out there. It's just what I've heard, which is a little bit scary, and that is a big chunk of extra money that you've got to find from somewhere. So like I feel so sorry for people that have been saving. They think, okay, I've got my 10% deposit, and then the bank's like, nope, you need 20%. Like, where are you supposed to get that money from? So the next thing that I did is I went into a bank, the bank that I bank with. I actually booked a meeting with one of their like mortgage specialists. I can't remember what they were called, but just the people that deal with mortgages. I sat down with them and they were like, it was pretty much like what they had told me online. So I gave them a bunch of information about like my income and salary and everything, and they were like, okay, we can lend you this amount. I decided not to go with them. It is a little bit more complicated because I'm self-employed. If you are like on a regular kind of like employment thing where you get a monthly wage, it is a little bit easier. If you're self-employed, it's a little bit more tricky because they obviously want to do a little bit more digging to be like, okay, well, can you actually like keep up this amount of income? And because months are like completely varied, it can be a little bit tricky and different, which is why I decided to go to a mortgage broker, which is something I would definitely recommend. My particular mortgage broker didn't charge me any fees, but what they do is I went for a meeting with them, gave them all my information, same as sort of what I gave to the bank. They then pull up a list of all of the mortgages that would be available to me, and then from that list they help you pick the best option for you. So I definitely found that the best route, and I would say if you are self-employed, even if you're not self-employed, I would definitely recommend going to a mortgage broker. My mortgage broker in particular, and I know it's the same case for a lot of others, they will just take a percentage of the mortgage, but they will get paid that from the bank. They'll get like a referral amount of money. Whereas I have read that some other mortgage brokers do charge you a fee. I'm pretty sure I saw somebody on Twitter the other day saying that their mortgage broker fees were like £250, £500, but there are ones out there that don't actually charge you anything. So I guess I got lucky with that. And she was so helpful throughout the whole process. Like, she would chase the solicitors for stuff. She would, you know, get in touch with the bank and my mortgage lender and like find out all this extra information, which I probably wouldn't have known to do if I'd have just gone with the bank. So I definitely recommend going that route, or definitely look into it. So the basis of it is, the more savings you have and the more deposit you can put down on a house, the lower your monthly repayments for your mortgage will be. Most mortgages are over, like, I think the average is like 25 years. I know that mine is for 25 years. So it's a big commitment. Obviously, you probably know that if you're watching this video, buying a house or a property or a flat or whatever is a big commitment, because that bank is lending you the money and you pay it back on a monthly basis with interest. It doesn't just come for free. Like, having a mortgage, you do pay a lot of interest on it. And again, with the mortgage broker, they can help you find the best interest rates. You can go with a 2-year fixed mortgage, a 3-year, a 5-year. I'm not going to get into that too much because it's probably just easier to Google that, like different interest rates with mortgages, because that is a whole other story. So I'm going to use this as like a general example, just because in my brain, like, it's quite easy to work it out. If a flat or a house is £300,000, you put down £30,000. Obviously the bank has then got to lend you, that is the toilet flushing, the bank has then got to lend you £270,000, and then you've got to repay that over, like, it's split up into monthly payments over 25 years with interest added. Whereas if you put down £60,000, you're in a better position because the bank has only got to lend you £240,000, and so your monthly payments each month will be less. Most mortgage lenders will offer you 4.5 times your salary. So I've got this written down here. Like, if you are on a £20,000 salary per year, they will lend you £90,000, which I mean is not a lot. Well, definitely not like in the south of England anyway, to like buy somewhere. So you would need a hell of a lot of savings. But you are obviously in a better position if you are buying with somebody else. If you're buying with a partner, say maybe you've both got £20,000, they take both of your incomes into account, and then they would be able to lend you £180,000, which obviously puts you in a better position. So it definitely does benefit you to buy with someone else, but I know that not everyone will be buying with someone else. I guess the best thing you can do is start saving as soon as possible. I've been saving pretty much since I was 18, because I knew that my end goal was that I wanted to buy a house. I was very lucky in that my parents let me live with them for as long as I possibly needed to. They didn't charge me rent. They would only charge me like £100 a month, which I was so lucky with, because I know a lot of my friends and stuff, their parents would charge them more. Some of my friends, their parents charged them nothing. I think it just depends on the household. But as soon as I started earning money, obviously, like, not when I was jobless, but when I started earning money, I started paying them £100 a month, which was pretty much just to cover my food. They didn't actually charge me like specific rent, but I guess that was rent. So start saving as soon as possible. That is what I would recommend. I'm just going to talk through like what I've got in my notes, and then I'll answer the other specific questions at the end. There are hidden fees when you're buying a house, which no one tells you about. Well, no one told me about, but I'm going to tell you about them. Maybe I was just naive and I had no idea about this stuff, but when I've spoken to a lot of my friends, they are kind of clueless as well, as in like, oh wow, I didn't know that there was all this extra stuff that goes into it. So these prices are just rough estimations based on like the south of England. I've got no idea what it is like in the Midlands and up north because I haven't lived there. And also I'd imagine that anything that is in central London, you will probably be doubling these figures. So the extra fees that you might need, the first big one is stamp duty. Don't ask me what stamp duty is or why we have to pay it. It's just something that you have to pay if you are a first-time buyer and a property is under £300,000 or 300,000 and under, there is £0 stamp duty. You're let off. I believe it's different if you're like a second time round buyer, you have to pay stamp duty on whatever. However, as soon as you go over that £300,000 mark, stamp duty goes up like this, which is an extra amount that you have to put down, which can be a hefty chunk of money that you would need to think about saving, as well as your deposit, because you can't just put down your deposit and be like, okay, that's all my money, and then have no money left for stamp duty if you are buying somewhere over 300,000. Again, there's a stamp duty calculator online. Just type in stamp duty calculator on Google, and I've written down a few estimates here. It goes really extreme just to show you the extreme increase in it. So if you're buying somewhere that is 350,000, you have to pay 2,500 stamp duty. If you're buying somewhere that is 400,000, you have to pay £5,000 stamp duty on top of your deposit. If you're buying somewhere that is £500,000, there is £10,000 stamp duty. And if you're buying somewhere for £1 million, I mean, I don't know what first time buyer is going to be buying somewhere for £1 million. The stamp duty is £43,750. So the more expensive that you're buying a property, the stamp duty really does this. So that is something to look out for, which you might need to put extra money aside for, and definitely consider if you're buying somewhere over 300 grand. If you're lucky enough to live somewhere where you can buy a whole ass house for under £300,000, then you're very lucky, basically. And you probably won't have to think about stamp duty. Another thing that you need to consider is solicitors' fees. My solicitors' fees, just to be like truthful and honest, were around £2,000, which again is another big hefty chunk of money, especially for them to be so bloody slow with all of their responses. So stamp duty, solicitors' fees around £2,000, probably more if you're like moving closer to London, probably less in other places, depends on the solicitor. Another thing you need to consider is mortgage broker fees. There might be fees, there might not be. In my case, I didn't have any. Another thing is mortgage setup fees. For me, my mortgage setup fee just to set up a mortgage cost me £1,000. I don't know why there needs to be a setup fee when you're paying so much interest anyway, but that's a thing. And another thing as well is you have to pay for searches, which the solicitor kind of like deals with all of that. But I think I paid around £500 for searches. So on top of your deposit, you've also got to think about all of these extra factors which you'll need money for, and also as well the obvious things. When you move in, you need money for bills, so you need to have enough monthly money to pay your mortgage repayments, your gas, water, electricity, Wi-Fi, TV license. That's like if you choose to have TV, you can just have a TV license and then have Freeview. Obviously your food, like everything you need to consider when you're moving out, which is a given. Council tax is another thing that you will have to pay on a monthly basis. There's different council tax bands depending on where you live. Depending on where you live. But council tax is another thing that I didn't even realize. I know that this is so bad, I didn't even realize existed until I was looking into moving out, and then people were like, yeah, you also need to consider council tax, which is usually like, I think the average council tax in the UK is around £150 a month, so that is also like a relatively big cost that you need to think about. So if you're looking to buy a house, put the postcode in on there's a website that breaks down the council tax bands. Put your postcode in on there of the houses that you're looking at, and it will tell you how much council tax you need to pay. Also as well, another thing to consider if you are looking to buy a flat, or if you're living somewhere that's in like sometimes with new build developments, if it's like kind of like a bunch of houses with like a little communal patch of grass or something, there might be maintenance fees that you need to pay. Some roads might have maintenance fees if they've got like a little patch of grass, or sometimes just in like little communities, like the road repairs are classed as maintenance fees where you have to pay. And I have read about some people moving into like a lovely new build development and then being caught out with a maintenance fee which they've ended up having to pay that they knew nothing about. So that's definitely a question to ask the estate agent if you are looking at any property. Is there a maintenance fee down this particular road or in this particular area? And I know that sometimes with flats there's also some kind of extra fees sometimes that are to do with like the land. I'm not entirely sure what, but if you're buying a flat, definitely ask if there's any extra fees involved. So the way that I looked for a house, I had a few people saying like, how did you find an estate agent? Like, how did you find houses? I did most of my searching online, so I went on websites like Zoopla and Rightmove and Purple Bricks. Also as well, I looked at estate agents online in the area that I wanted to move to, and most of them have like a big list of all of the houses that are for sale. So I definitely recommend looking at like local estate agents as well. You can sign up to their mailing list if you want to be notified of like new houses. You put in the specific criteria that you're looking for, and then when they have a house that's been added to their site that matches your criteria, they'll send you an email Although just the thing about estate agents, if you were giving them your mobile number, they will call you very often to be like, oh, we've had this house come up, like, do you want to view it or whatever? So just be wary of like giving out your information if you don't want to be bombarded with phone calls. Something I would very much suggest doing if you are looking on any of these kind of like house search websites, go to the filters. Obviously you will probably put in your maximum price, your like minimum requirements for like number of bedrooms and stuff like that. But something that when I first started looking, I kept seeing all these houses pop up and being like, oh wow, that's nice, click on it, and then it will say for over 60s only, special price for retirement. So go into the filters, turn off retirement properties, turn off shared ownership if shared ownership is not something that you're looking into. I personally don't know much about shared ownership because that's not what I decided to do, but there are kind of like lending schemes. And then it will narrow it down to a bunch of houses, and you won't get your hopes up seeing a house where you think like, oh wow, that's a good price. And then you click on it and it's for over 60s at a reduced rate. Another thing I would definitely recommend is be picky. Buying a house is obviously a huge decision, and I know that that is a given for most people, but the more houses you look at online, the more houses you go to view, the better idea that you'll have of what you're looking for. 99% of people don't go and view one house and think, yep, this is the one. Like, it takes a while. I looked at probably around 10 houses, but I know that for some people they will look at 20, 30, 40 houses over a long process until they find the perfect house. So I would say don't kind of settle, because I'm sure that something will come up within your budget that is more what you're looking for. And if you don't find it straight away, don't freak out, don't panic. There were many times where I saw houses online and I was like, oh my god, I think that's the one, just from looking at the pictures. And then I went and viewed it and was like, oh, okay, it's not as nice as the pictures, and there was like a lot more issues with it, and my camera's about to stop recording. So be picky. Is it too good to be true? There's quite a few houses where I looked at where I was like, wow, that's a good price, it looks really nice. What's the catch? Go into the little map on the property viewing website and have a look. Is it right next to a railway track where it's going to be noisy? Is it right next to an airport where you're going to have loads of planes going over like every 5 minutes? Is it right next to a hospital where there might potentially be ambulances going backwards and forwards with sirens on? Those were the three probably most common things that I saw when I was looking for houses, and I thought, wow, that seems like a great buy. Then I would look at it on Google Maps and look at it on like the little map, and it would be like right next to a railway track. I know that for some people that might be great because it's really handy, you're really close to the station. However, if you've got a railway track in your back garden, like, it might not be ideal. Like for me personally, I wanted to live somewhere relatively quiet and not be right next to a railway, because obviously I need to film videos and have decently quiet background noise. But if that doesn't bother you, then fine, you might be able to find yourself a bargain. Another thing is to look, is it near a river that floods? I know that in not all parts of the UK this might not be a issue, but again, if a property is near to a river, that might be why it's slightly reduced prices. Look into the river. Does it flood often? Is that going to be an issue in the future? So just to break down my process, I went to the bank, decided that I didn't want to take on their mortgage offer, then went to a mortgage broker, found it a lot more useful. She found me a mortgage which worked for me and specifically tailored to my needs. She helped me kind of work it all out in terms of how many years I would be paying back the mortgage, which interest rates it was, how many years fixed rate to go for, and then she put all that information to the mortgage lender, so to the bank, so I didn't have to do any of that. So she sorted that out for me. I ended up getting a solicitor's recommendation from my estate agent. If you have no idea where to start with solicitors, I'd probably recommend doing that, although a lot of estate agents will get like a commission off of you being referred by them to a specific solicitor, but I'm not that bothered about that. I mean, get your coin, sis, you know? The solicitors deal with all of the legal stuff, and oh my god, there is so much paperwork to read, so many bits of paper to sign. Get ready to be very confused. It takes a long time to read, and there's many bits of documentation that you need to provide to the solicitors that they need to give to you, lots of backwards and forwards, and I think solicitors are generally known for being quite slow. Mine were quite slow. I would say to chase them in a polite way. Don't like harass them every day, like, do you have any updates? Do you have any updates? Because then they might like not want to help you. But every so often, just I would send a little email nudge being like, hey, just checking in, like, do you have any more information about this? Just to give them a bit of a kick up the bum, because the solicitor's process was so slow and so painful. I forgot to mention a very key thing. When I was like beginning to look round houses, before I did that, I got an agreement in principle from my mortgage lender. Getting an agreement in principle basically means that the mortgage lender has been contacted, they've checked all your kind of like income and whatever and deposit, and they have agreed that they will most likely give you that mortgage for a specific amount. And I would definitely recommend doing that before you go and start looking around places, because you might go around looking at places thinking of this budget in your head that is going to be totally fine, and then you might go to a mortgage lender and they might be like, oh no, we can't lend you that amount of money. So I'd say to get an agreement in principle before you start looking. Otherwise, there is a chance that you might fall in love with somewhere and then the bank will be like, no, sorry, we can't lend you that amount of money, and your hopes and dreams will be shattered. Also as well, a couple of the places that I looked around, they asked me if I did have an agreement in principle and how much it was for. I think that was just them being nosy because I look quite young, and a lot of the estate agents seemed quite confused when I showed up. They were kind of a bit taken aback, like, oh, okay. So yeah, I did get a few judgmental looks from estate agents, I won't lie, and a few of them did do a bit of digging, asking me. One of them asked me if my parents were buying me the house, which I was a bit offended by. I was like, no, they're not. But that's not really any of their business anyway. But yeah, they might ask you if you do have an agreement in principle. So that's just something that I would definitely recommend doing before you start looking. So on the day that we found this house, by the way, when I'm saying we, if you haven't watched my videos, my boyfriend James actually lives with me. I have explained this in a previous video before, but it was always my idea that I was gonna buy somewhere, like buy a house. That was always my dream since I was about like 18. So I knew in my head that that was going to happen no matter what, like whether I was in a relationship, whether I was single, I was still going to buy somewhere of my own. Obviously when I met James, he didn't know that at all, and he just assumed that if we were to move in together in the future, we would be renting and like splitting costs equally, or if we were going to buy somewhere, that we would buy it together and split costs equally or whatever. Once our relationship started getting more serious, I did tell him about my plans to buy a house because I was kind of itching to move out. But yeah, obviously like because we are still together around the time of me buying a house, it just made sense for him to move in with me because we wanted to move in together anyway. I think that's quite normal for a couple that's been together like a year to want to move in together. But yeah, I've had so many nosy questions, which I get. Like I get that people are curious and I get that people are concerned. I've had quite a lot of concerned comments like, oh, buying a house with somebody that you've only been with like a few months is a big commitment. First of all, we've been together like it will be 2 years in October. I know that that's not the longest relationship ever, and it still would be quite soon to buy a house with someone. But no, I bought the house. That was always my goal to do anyway. But obviously having a housemate effectively is great because we can split costs for everything and it makes things cheaper for the both of us. So it just made sense to do it that way instead of James having to rent a separate place. If you see what I mean, like it just wouldn't have made any sense. That's just how it works for people that are curious, but I know that that's a bit of an unusual situation. But obviously I'm not naive to the fact that I am in a very good position, like doing YouTube as my job and having lived with my parents for so long and getting like a good income. I'm not blind to the fact that I'm extremely privileged and like it's a bit of an unusual kind of situation. But there have been quite a few people that have commented on my videos being like, yeah, I'm the same age as you and I just bought my first house by myself, so it is doable. Like clearly it's doable. So most of the houses we did look around together just because we were both going to be living here, but obviously like I had the main decision because it was my house. But luckily we have quite similar tastes and stuff, and James is not fussy. Mostly I just wanted him to come with me so that I didn't feel so awkward going by myself, to be honest, because he actually looks his age. So when we found this house, we put an offer in straight away after viewing it because I was like, yes, I love it. The estate agent had let us know that someone else had put in an offer that morning, so he was like, if you do like it, we kind of need to know pretty quickly because we need to give the seller both of the offers. So we literally viewed the house, went and sat back in the car, didn't even move, phoned the estate agent and was like, okay, we want to put in an offer, what do we do now? And then he was like, okay, well what's your offer? And then I was like, oh crap, I hadn't even thought about it. So in terms of putting in an offer, it's always a good idea to put slightly less than the asking price. I mean, you could just go straight in and be like, yep, I'll give you the full money. Like if you're really that heart set on it, then you could do that. But most people put in a slightly lower offer in the hopes that they might accept it and be like, yeah, sure, we'll knock 50 grand off the price. Or they might be like, okay, yeah, we'll meet you in the middle. So that's actually what I did. I put in an offer that was 20,000 less than the asking price. And they were basically like, we can't take that, but we can take like a little bit more. So I ended up just kind of like sort of meeting them partway through. So it's definitely worth doing that. And I think the majority of people do that, so don't be embarrassed, because I was thinking like, I can't do that. But everyone was like, so that's what everyone does. Moved in at the beginning of May. So January, February, March, April, May. So from putting the offer in to moving in, it took 4 months. That is pretty quick in some situations. That is pretty long in some situations. I've heard of some people that literally move in within like a month of putting the offer in, which is crazy. Some people move in 2 years after them putting the offer in. It all depends on so many different factors. Like there's so much that goes into it, and so many little like hurdles along the way that can affect different things. Oh, another thing which is important as well. So somebody commented on my video saying, I bought my first house at 19 years old. Congrats to you, like that is an achievement. It only took us 2 months to move in as we had no chain. Just be patient, good things come in time. So that was like 3 months ago when I said that I was waiting to move in. So it can definitely take less time depending on your circumstances. She mentioned that there was no chain. So what that basically means is that you're moving into a house that nobody is currently living in. It's a vacant house. So for example, a new build, or if somebody is like selling a house that they're not currently living in, or like if somebody's died and they're trying to sell their house, that is where there's no chain, and that is the quickest kind of process, because if there is a chain, it can get very complicated. For example, even if you're a first-time buyer yourself, the person that you're buying a house off, they might be buying a house off somebody else, who might be buying a house off somebody else, and they've all got to wait for their specific moving dates and to get everything sorted on their end before they can move out and you can move in. Having a chain is definitely a longer process and can make things a lot more complicated. So this person said, how did you choose an estate agent? I didn't specifically choose a estate agent for a particular reason. I was just looking on like Rightmove and Zoopla, and all of the estate agents for the houses that we looked at were like different. Like most of them were all different estate agents to each other. It just depends on the house. Like I didn't choose an estate agent specifically, I chose a house specifically, and it was with a particular estate agent. What does the mortgage process require? Do you go to the bank and tell them you want a mortgage or what? Yeah, you can do. I mean, you can just phone up your bank or go on their website and book an appointment with one of their like mortgage people. That's what I did initially. Buying our first home was so stressful too. I remember just not knowing if I should be contacting solicitors to ask what to do next, or if they're just doing it themselves. There was so much paperwork to send back and forth. Yeah, I would say if you are unsure of things, don't be embarrassed to ask. There were quite a few instances where the solicitors would send me an email or a letter, and I had to phone them just to like clarify and get them to explain the process. And I kind of said on the phone, like, I'm really sorry to like ask this, it might sound like a stupid question, but because I'm a first time buyer, I'm not really sure like what this means or like what I should be doing here, and they were happy enough to explain it. So don't be embarrassed to ask questions, and don't be embarrassed to contact the solicitors if you're unsure of what to do next. And my camera ran out of memory again. Wow, I've been filming for a long time. I had a couple questions. Someone said, did you say your parents charge you for food? Is that normal? And another person said, wow, what do you mean your parents charge you for food and not for rent also? Like, is that a thing in the UK? Parents charging their kids for still living with them? I'm so confused. I would say that is a thing in the UK. Obviously not everywhere, but a lot of my friends, I know that when, not when you're still at school and not if you've got no job, but when you start earning your own money, I know that some parents, in order to get their kids into the mindset of like saving and like having to have responsibilities, I know that some parents do charge their kids rent, and I would say that that's fairly normal in the UK. This might be a good place to ask this. I'd love to buy my own place. I'm in a similar position to Soph. I've been working and saving a lot, but I have no idea whether I'm financially ready to move out. I find it so unclear as to whether how much you need for that initial payment. If anyone has any tips or ideas of actual money, please let me know. Yeah, I would definitely recommend going onto a mortgage calculator. Also as well, on a lot of websites, like house hunting websites like Rightmove and Zoopla, down the bottom of the page, they have a little like repayment calculator where you can put in the amount of deposit you have and the rough kind of mortgage length. Most of them are like 25 years, so that's what I would just put in, and it tells you the rough amount that you would have to pay back each month, and that way you can kind of work out if you can afford it. So I definitely recommend doing that. Did you ever have to think about moving in with James, or did you know right away that's what you wanted to do? I think when we were about like 6 months into the relationship, we started talking about like just living with each other in the future. It was never really like a question of, like, I never really was like, do you want to move in with me? It was more of just, I don't know. I think I remember one time we were just chatting and James would be like, oh yeah, if we move in together in the future we could get this or whatever, and that was before like he even knew that I wanted to buy a house. He was just assuming that we would like rent somewhere together. I don't know, it was just always kind of casually dropped into conversation, and then after a while it was kind of like, oh, when we live together, like, I don't know, it was never really, I think both of us knew that we wanted to live together, and I think that's relatively normal. Like for a lot of couples it just kind of makes sense because you save costs on food and bills. Some people were saying, oh, I moved in with my boyfriend after 2 months and we're now married with 3 kids. You know, like the situations are different for everyone, and I think you shouldn't judge. If you want to move in with someone, move in with them. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. As long as you're happy, like, you know. Did you make a set of criteria and must-haves and definitely nots for the house, and did you stick to them? Yes, I did. I was pretty picky with the criteria for the house. I know that some people want to move in somewhere that's completely run down and get a really good deal on it and do it all the way up. Some people want to move into a new build. I knew that I wanted somewhere kind of like in between. I didn't necessarily want a new build, but I wasn't against them. But I didn't want somewhere that was like completely run to the ground and needed tons of work doing, because I knew that I wanted to move in and be able to work relatively soon. So yeah, this place isn't new. It's not like super old. There are things that need to be doing, like changing light fixtures and painting walls and filling in a few holes here and there, but it's not like falling down, you know. Question, how long did it take for you to have a deposit ready? I was saving, yeah, like I said, I was saving from when I was about 18. I went through phases in my life of being bad at saving and good at saving, but yeah, when I turned 18 I was like, okay, I started earning a bit of money from YouTube and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start putting this into a savings account. I opened up an ISA and was just like, yeah, okay, I should probably start saving for my future. And something's kind of switched in my brain and I was like, I need to be a bit more sensible with my money. Yeah, so I was saving from when I was 18 and I bought my house when I was 22. I'm now 23, so start saving sooner rather than later, because it would definitely benefit you, like the more amount of deposit that you've got. And also as well, you need money for things like furniture. One good tip that I have written down, when you move in, because obviously when you're buying places, there's not going to be furniture. You don't move into a furnished house. Well, there might be some cases where people will leave behind bits of furniture, but in the majority of cases you will have to buy everything kind of from scratch. We were very lucky in that the previous owners were selling their fridge, they were selling the washing machine, they were selling a tumble dryer, which we haven't even used. As in, like, they said that they would give them to us for like a little added extra cost. So we got a banging deal on that. Like our fridge freezer, I think they sold to us for like £100 or something, but it's like a really good fridge freezer. But if you have just moved in and you are looking for cheap places to get furniture, like ASAP, like you need a table and chairs to sit down and eat your first few meals on. Like we currently still only have 2 fold-out chairs and my brother's old desk as our dining table. Because we just haven't got around to buying a dining table yet, we don't need it because we don't have anyone coming around for dinner because of Corona. And I was thinking, you know what, there's no rush to get every single bit of furniture. Just remember, like when you move in, you don't have to get everything at once. You can wait, like there's no rush for things. The main things that you will need is obviously a mattress. A bed is ideal as well. So we got our bed and our mattress like the day we moved in. We like ordered it to be delivered for our moving day. And what else did we get? We got a sofa pretty soon after as well. Just like a sofa bed. But yeah, what you could do is just get a sofa bed, sleep on that for the first few weeks. But somewhere great to look is Facebook Marketplace. Loads of people put stuff for free on Facebook Marketplace. They're just like getting rid of, I don't know, a few random chairs and you can just go and collect them. They will leave it like outside and you can go and collect it. Also, people will put up like furniture for like a tenner. Jeez, I think that is everything. This is going to be the longest video known to man. If you've got any more questions, let me know down below. But if you do have questions, watch the video first because I've probably answered it. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please let me know. I'd love to like hear any of your advice or tips or questions or anything else. If you are a first-time buyer and you are buying somewhere soon, good luck with the process. I promise you all the paperwork and everything is worth it. It's such a lovely feeling. And yeah, like I said, I'm not stupid to the fact that I'm incredibly lucky that at the age of 23, like, I'm living in my own house. It was just always like a goal of mine, and I decided, just me personally, I decided that I wasn't going to rent somewhere because I would rather have saved my money to put towards a deposit. But I know that not everyone is lucky enough to be in a situation where they can live with their parents up until that age. But also as well, I know a lot of people live with their parents all throughout their 20s, which again, nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I think that is it. I'm gonna go now. I haven't actually had any dinner yet. Oh my god, it's 10 to 10 in the evening. To be fair, we did have a McDonald's about 4 o'clock, so that was kind of like a really late lunch. I hope you guys are doing good, and I will see you in my next vlog. It is now completely dark outside. Bye!